So what you lot saying, man? Welcome back to the Click It podcast, bro. It's been 2 years, but I'm finally back, and I'm here with a special guest today. I told you guys it was going to be a special guest. Today we're here with Mr. Chris Summers.
Hi, how you doing? Where
doing,
you been
Chris?
for 2 years?
2 years. It's been a long time, man. It's been a long time. My co-host was even meant to be here, but he couldn't be here today.
Right.
But yeah, man, you were the one who was covering the Dig That case. For all of you guys that don't know, Chris Summers is a crime journalist. Do you want to tell the people more about specifics?
Yeah, I've started at, I'm a journalist, and specialised in crime from way back when you were in nappies, doing Fred and Rose West, serial killer. Do you remember that?
No, I don't even know.
I used to work in Gloucester and cut my teeth doing that case. Then came to London and, lots of all sorts of murder cases and armed robberies and stuff like that. And then only in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, I got into sort of covering a lot of the sort of drill-related, gang-related crimes, murders, shootings, stuff like that.
So what made you, because you obviously go into courts and like you watch a lot of trials. Is that what you do? Just like journalism, full journalism? You have a law background or?
Yeah, no. You learn the basics of law when you're doing journalism. How not to libel people, how not to break the rules around courts.
What's libeling people?
Well, like if I was to say, Mr. So and so is a rapist or whatever, and there's no evidence or whatever, then I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble. So
Okay.
you just got to be careful what you say. You got to make sure you got the evidence to back it up. I did a story a few years ago where I covered a trial and named this guy, Turkish guy, who basically in the whole evidence of the trial, it said that he was a major sort of drug smuggler or whatever, and he'd then become a legit businessman.
Oh.
And he was trying to sue when I was working at the BBC then, and sort of say, "Oh, take this story down. It said it's lies or whatever." And I had to sort of prove to the lawyers, BBC lawyers, it's all true. It's all in evidence.
So he sued you. Was it a civil lawsuit that then? Like he sued you for defamation?
He was just scared. He was just trying to scare. He was trying to make us take the story down.
Okay.
Because I think people Googled his name, and one of the first things they found was this article saying he was a drug smuggler and agent of Turkish military intelligence or something. So,
and all of that was true?
It was true, yeah, but he'd now gone legit and it was a hotelier or whatever, so he didn't want people knowing his background.
Damn. You know what? I want to ask you, because you've been in court a lot, haven't you, over your career time, isn't it? It's going to be a generic question, but what's the maddest trial you've seen? When I say maddest, I mean just in terms of witnesses maybe disappearing, just mad stuff happening.
Well, I think probably one of the most
Memorable.
dramatic trials was Securitas. So that robbery in 2006, where this gang they were sort of London gang, Southeast London. They stole 54 million quid from cash. It's like where the cash in transit vans go to fill up or whatever. So they actually stole 54 million, but they left behind about 150 million.
Oh my God.
Because they didn't realise there was going to be so much there. They only had one lorry, could basically not only fit that much in.
Yeah.
But it was all, they'd got these disguises. They got a makeup artist to make them these sort of latex masks. And the best witness was the makeup artist herself, who went on trial to start with. And then halfway through the trial, she suddenly became a prosecution witness and suddenly went into the witness protection scheme. Right. And she started giving evidence against the robbers, saying, yes, I fitted in with this mask.
You know what? I think, is there a TV show on that or something?
Or yeah.
Because I feel like I've seen that story somewhere.
Yeah, it's either Showtime made a program about, it's called Catching Lightning. And it's about Lee Murray, he was a cage fighter. And his nickname's Lee Lightning Murray. He was the main ringleader of the robbers, and so that's probably where you heard about it.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen a TV show about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lee Murray guy.
Yeah.
You know what happened to him in the end?
He's now still in prison in Morocco.
Yeah. Yeah, the guys in Morocco. I've been hearing stories because I'm Moroccan myself.
Oh right,
I
yeah.
heard stories about how the guy is like how they're not treating him well or something in prison or something.
Oh, really? Right.
Bring the mic to you, innit?
Okay, yeah,
If you've unmuted it as well.
Yeah, but his best mate Paul Allen, who was also a cage fighter, he recently he got shot twice. He got shot in 2018 and then 2019. They tried to kill him, and nobody really knows why. I don't think it was anything to do with Securitas. It's to do with other sort of underworld stuff. But most recently, only like a couple of weeks ago, the 3 guys got found guilty of conspiracy to murder. They basically climbed up over his garden fence and shot him while he was in the back of his house.
Jesus.
And he survived, but he was paralysed. So yeah, that was quite a dramatic. That was quite a good trial as well.
Damn. So you didn't get. What did he get convicted of for that then?
Well, conspiracy to murder, you get a long time. You know, you can get a long time because it was only by luck that he didn't, die.
Okay.
So
For conspiracy for murder, you have to have the intent to kill, isn't it?
yeah, it's basically so they can get 3 different people. Only one of them did the shots, but so you can, say all 3 of us plotted to kill someone, and you were the one who did the shooting. We'd all go down for it.
And I've got a question about, because conspiracy has wrapped up a lot of people. I don't know if you heard of the rapper KO.
Yeah.
I think you covered him as well.
I did the coverage trial, yeah.
Yeah, so he got 37 years and he wasn't even there.
No, that's right. That's right. Well, I mean, I think there was evidence he was in the car, that night. Or
Okay.
yeah, there was, but he was definitely, there was no evidence he was a shooter or anything like that. So,
So with was it like DNA in the car that they found? His DNA in the car? Or?
I can't remember offhand what it was that convicted him, but it was definitely there was a lot of evidence that he was, and it wasn't just he wrote the lyrics to the song, Laughing Stock, and incriminated himself that way. It was a bit more than that. But yeah, famous sort of self-snitching case.
Yeah, was it a thing where, because to prove conspiracy, and let's say I wasn't there, to get me into the conspiracy charge, would the prosecution have to kind of prove that this shooting wouldn't have happened without me, or that I was just involved in it? Yeah,
just that you're involved in it. So
okay.
It would only when they sentence somebody, the defence would say, well, he only played a pretty minor part, say you stole a car that was used in the shooting, so you'd probably get a much lesser sentence than people who actually went in that car that night on the shooting. But you could still get done for conspiracy, So
okay,
yeah, or you might just steal provide a burner phone that was used on the night,
and I could get wrapped up in a conspiracy murder just for providing a phone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole controversy about joint enterprise. There's all this. There's a lot of campaigners who think the law is far too wide, and you can have 9 or so people go on trial for murder when clearly only one of them probably has actually done the 1 or 2 of them maybe have done the actual stabbing or whatever. But yeah, so it's an argument that goes on. Do they get too many people? I remember there was a case, the rapper 16 Shots.
16 Shots.
He was down in
Heard
Brixton.
of that one?
Yeah, so his real name's Salem Kudu. So him and a mate went on to do a ride out to attack a rival gang, and it all went horribly wrong for them. They crashed the car, and his mate just ran off and left him with he had a big sort of machete, but he suddenly got sort of surrounded by the rival gang who chased him through Brixton and ended up stabbing him to death. And there was the evidence in the trial. There was about 9 people chasing after him, and they were all seen on CCTV. And it was all a question of can you say all of them were guilty of murder? So I think only 2 or 3 of them actually got convicted, because the others were said, well, I was running after. I was trying to find out what was going on. I didn't actually have a knife on me. I was just sort of curious, and so it's quite a difficult thing to prove that.
Yeah. So what do you think overall then? Do you think the law is a good deterrent for people?
Well, it's clearly not. It's not really working, is it? Because people, even this weekend, somebody murdered in Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the people doing it are so young. Maybe they're sort of ignorant of how the law works. Maybe. I mean, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they were saying maybe they should teach the law in schools. But then people might want to just work. Well, how do I get away with a crime rather than actually discouraging them from committing the crimes in the first place?
I think it just makes people move more cautious. They take more precautions now because they know what could happen to them, even if they're not directly involved in it.
Yeah, but a lot of people, they lose their rag, don't they? They might see a video from another gang sort of goading them or sort of mocking them or whatever, and I think sort of sometimes the red mist comes down and they just decide we're going to go out and hit them, and they sometimes it's really unsophisticated, just ringing up a taxi and getting a taxi to take them and expecting that the taxi driver's not going to go to the police and tell them who was in the car or whatever. It's pretty basic mistakes being made.
Have you ever been to a murder trial where the person's been found not guilty, but you've thought that person did it?
Yes, but I can't think off the top of my head which one. But I think there have been cases, where somebody's walked. Maybe one of the defendants in the Securitas trial. I was quite surprised he got acquitted, but I'm not saying he didn't I'm not saying he did it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can be quite surprised at the verdicts.
You see how in America, they'll like people can get away with things because a stop was illegal and it shouldn't have happened. That doesn't happen here, does it?
It seems to be harder to get off on that sort of technicality. They have a big thing over there about search warrants have to be exactly, perfectly, written out and whatever. And even if there's a typo in it, and even if they then find the murder weapon in your house, the warrant wasn't done properly, so it doesn't count. It's like,
so it'd be inadmissible.
Yeah, I think it can be. So
that doesn't happen here, does it?
Here it's more. That was it was technically not right, but the evidence is the evidence. So, I mean, we've had our fair case of miscarriages of justice, obviously. I remember going up to Glasgow and meeting a guy. Two guys got convicted of a famous murder up there. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Ice Cream Wars.
Have you heard of that, bro?
That was I think it was in the 70s when these rival ice cream vans they were actually selling drugs from the ice cream van.
Oh my God.
And they were going onto these estates. And anyway, one gang set fire to this house of the rival people, and a whole family died, and two guys were convicted of it. One was T.C. Campbell, and he was convicted on what they called verbals. So it was basically when he got arrested, and then he's in the back of a police car going to the police station, and the police later claim that he's confessed in the back of the car. Oh, or he said something really incriminating. And that was it. That was used in trial. They changed the law. Now you can't do that.
Oh, can they not?
No,
even though what they tell you before you're arrested, anything you do say, that.
Yeah, exactly. They do that, and I don't think you're not gonna get away with it unless. Why wasn't that recorded? Why wasn't? I mean, obviously nowadays they've all got body worn cameras as well. So it would be very hard to explain. Well, how come you didn't get recording of this, or you haven't? Nobody saw him say that. It's just your word. And you didn't record it, it's just...
So in that case, there was no recording, it was just the officer's word?
Yeah. And in those days...
Wow. That's scary.
Juries just believed anything a policeman said. Oh, yeah, he said he did it, and therefore, obviously now we all know that police can occasionally make things up or, to try to frame people. We've had famous cases, the Birmingham 6 and numerous miscarriages of justice cases where police slightly exaggerated or made things up to get convictions.
That's only where they've been exposed.
Yeah.
It's only where they've been exposed. Damn, but let's talk about, what's the other case? Let's talk about this Fredo case, where Fredo was at the trial for Lil Dots, and the case where, what was it? It was about they got into one of their group chats and they saw that they were planning on buying guns to kill Digger D. Is that what they said in court?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say too much about that because there's a retrial coming up in May.
Okay.
But I mean, the facts are out there as to this is what the allegation was, and I think they had a hung jury first trial, so there's going to have another trial. Fredo is on the indictment. You know, in other words, he should be on trial as well, but he's still in Dubai.
Okay.
So I presume if the minute he came back in the country, he would be arrested and he would go on trial as well. So
Allegedly, he's in Thailand now. So
right.
Allegedly,
okay.
yeah.
But even further from the Scotland Yard grasp, maybe. But.
So what would they? So with this, because Fredo's staying out of the country, I assume extraditing him is a costly process. So would they only extradite him after they've got a conviction for the people they've already got in custody?
I'm not. I mean, I'm not 100% sure how extradition works. I think if you want someone bad enough, you won't wait for their co-defendants to get convicted. You'll try to get him extradited, but maybe they can't be exactly sure where he is, or sometimes, some countries are quite hard to. They won't extradite people, and we might not have a extradition treaty with Thailand. I'm not sure. I think
we do.
I think we do. I think I've seen sort of people being sent back from there, but so I don't know. I'm sure he might ring into your show and tell you that he's innocent and that he's just biding his time and he will come back.
Yeah, that's what we hope. So that's what we hope. But what would you be looking at if it went the worst case? If it was the worst case scenario, what would you be looking at?
I think it would be quite a few years that he's facing. So I can't remember the exact details of the case. I mean, obviously, there's very little evidence being given about his role, so we can't be sure exactly. But he's facing long enough to make it worth staying away. But,
okay, that's okay. Damn.
But I mean, you got people like Russell Brand, he's apparently in America, isn't he? But he's just been charged with rape and other offences, and he says that he's looking forward to coming and proving his innocence. So, some people, if they've got a big black cloud over them, hanging over them, they just want to, okay, bring it on. I'll go on trial and I'll prove myself innocent, and you can just go away and leave me alone.
But with these rape cases, it's difficult because the conviction rate's so low, isn't it? Like 1 in 3 in 100 cases result in a conviction.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually because it's not many people actually get charged. So, Russell Brand is in that sort of small element now that have actually been charged.
All right.
But even to get a conviction is not always the case. I mean, it wasn't a rape charge, but what was his name? Spacey, the actor.
Oh, Kevin Spacey?
Kevin Spacey, he got acquitted of sort of sexual assault charges, which I think might have been a surprise when you saw he'd be charged, but he obviously managed to prove that he didn't do it, or there wasn't enough evidence that he did it.
One question I have as well that I think people want to know is, in the UK justice system, do you think if you've got a bit of clout, you've got a name for yourself, are they more likely to go forward with charging you for a case like that?
I think they're probably more likely to think about it, like, are we actually going to do this? Are we really going to charge this person? I mean, especially a few years ago, they had there was a big allegation. It's called Dolphin Square. So it was big allegations being made about VIPs. A lot of them had passed away. Like former Prime Minister Edward Heath, and all these sort of very well-known MPs and generals. There was a field marshal or general who was supposed to be involved, and they were allegedly, running a paedophile ring in the sort of 70s and 80s, and but it was also on the basis of one guy who came forward and made all these allegations, and it was huge. You know, it was all over the papers, and then it turned out they'd been making the whole thing up.
Oh my God.
He just lying his head off, and I think after that, the police now are like very wary of sort of bringing an allegation like that.
Yeah.
You know, if it's based on just some crazy guy. He actually went to prison for perverting the course of justice. So.
Okay. Because there's a lot of people on the internet who seem to think that because you've got a name for yourself, that if you get accused of rape, then they're more likely to charge you. But you've just what you've said makes a lot more sense. They're more likely to think about it more.
Yeah.
They actually give it more consideration. So you could kind of say that if you get charged with rape as a known person, it's kind of more likely that they've got some evidence on you.
I wouldn't like to go down that road, but I mean, you can see that, you know, I can't remember when that Channel 4 documentary about Russell Brand was, but it was probably at least a year ago, wasn't it? So it's taken them a long time to decide to prosecute him.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether he's innocent or not, but a jury will decide.
Yeah, I'm talking not just Russell Brand. I'm talking Andrew Tate as well. You know, all these big. When he comes for his trial, you're gonna be there for that one.
Who, Tate?
Yeah.
Well, he's going to go on trial in Romania, isn't he?
I think Romania. I think America, even maybe.
Yeah.
He's going to come here eventually, isn't it? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't followed the case. You know, I mean, I know what it's all about.
Yeah.
But it's not kind of in my top 3 of cases I'm following. You know, put it that way.
Right. Well, let's talk about Dig That now.
Yeah.
Because that's just the main case right now. That's the hot topic. Well, not right now, but that's what's been the hot topic. He's going to be sentenced soon. They said it was a later date. So how does that even work when they say we're going to sentence him at a later date? When do they come up with a date? How's the date even, you know?
Well, I think he has got other proceedings against him later in the year. So it will depend on the outcome of that trial. It's a bit like KO. In that case, he wasn't sentenced for quite a long time after he was found guilty, because one of his co-defendants, there was a hung jury and they had to have a retrial, and it took a long time before they eventually said, right, okay, now we can go to sentencing. So it can be surprisingly long time.
Yeah.
But especially when they know he's going to get a long time anyway. It's not as if he's going to be in, you know, whatever time he serves on remand in custody now, he's going to come off his eventual sentence. So,
yeah. How long do you reckon they'll give him?
I was having this discussion with somebody the other day who ex-police officer, and he was going for a higher figure than I was sort of leaning more to sort of 15 to 20 years, and he was saying, no, I think it might be 25 plus, you know. So
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
What makes you think it'll be 15 to 20 based on what you've seen before?
I think I'm wrong. I think I think you're probably going to be right, you know, because it was a, you know, shooting with like 8 bullets, 6 hit him, and really could easily have died. So it could have been a murder charge. You know, that sort of aggravate, you know, that sort of shooting in public, you know, pretty indiscriminate, could easily have hit somebody else. Yeah, I think.
Okay, and I've got a few questions about the case as well. 2 questions that have been on my mind and I've been waiting to ask you in person because you're going to know the answer to these things. So you see how they introduced the interview between Bouncer and Striker, and they showed that in court. Did that help Dig That's case, or did it make it worse?
Well, and I mean, the jury obviously convicted him. Whether it sort of went on the balancing scales and might have helped him a bit, I don't know if it played much of a you know, it seemed at the time when they made it, you know, when they decided it was going to be admissible, it seemed that it would help him, you know, because obviously in that, Striker is saying that he wasn't the shooter. You know, he says, I saw who did it, and it wasn't him. I was amazed when the police charged him, and you think, well, you know, if the victim says that you've got the wrong man, then the jury's going to think, well, why are we going to convict him? But
wouldn't the jury be thinking this guy's just traumatized.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's clearly just, you know, they'd probably think, because the way he said it, the way it came off in the interview, I think the jury might have taken it as, oh, this guy's definitely just doesn't want to snitch. You know, he's
Yeah,
just,
well, it was when I spoke to the prosecutor, she sort of said that what had actually, you know, she then insisted that they played the other video, which was in which he had basically, that was one where he sort of talking to the camera.
oh, that one where he describes the
He
experience.
describes the actual shooting.
Yeah.
And there's quite a lot of factual errors in it. You know, he's talking about he's talking about the shooters shooting out the tires on his car, and then he claims that they both sort of collided, the two cars, and neither of those are true.
Oh,
So basically, you know, her point was, well, obviously his memory of the event was not right. So he might have thought he might have thought he saw the shooter and it wasn't digged at, but clearly his whole memory of the night was not reliable. You know, he'd been shot in the head apart from anything else, and you know, was in a coma for several days or weeks.
yeah, it was mad.
So yeah, that does that. You know, what that does to your memory, I don't know. But
Yeah. And also another one, the girl, Yasmin Martins. Who was her mother giving evidence for?
I believe she was called as I think she was a prosecution witness.
Okay, I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it. Now my conscience is wiped off, because I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to imply that, but I thought that's what happened. 'Cause I didn't think it would make. I didn't think it would make any sense for Digdat to have called her to, you know, her mother to give him a statement. You know what I mean?
No, I think I might be wrong, but I think that was the case. I mean, the defense might have called her if the prosecution hadn't anyway. But yeah, that was all very strange, because Digdat didn't make a statement. He went no comment the whole way through. He didn't give a prepared statement. He didn't give evidence. And the only sort of indication we've got about what his defense might have been was this question asked to the mother. Do you remember him coming across and picking up his, you know, chain on that night? You know, arriving in the middle of the night and saying, "Oh, I've left a chain here and I need to collect it." And you know, that was apparently his alibi. But you know, if that's your alibi, why don't you go in the dock and say that? You know, so it was a very strange case.
The word is it wasn't Digdat who even shot him.
No, well, there was other people in the car. There was, so who knows? Who knows what really happened that night?
Yeah, no one actually knows apart from them.
No, exactly. But it was, you know, I mean, it sounds like a bizarre, the whole thing. I remember him, you know, he was shot several times, and then they drove off, and then he, you know, probably panicking, Stryker, he starts his car up and starts driving around the streets. And he's probably thinking, I've got to get away from him, sort of thing. But then he realised, I think, how badly he was injured, and he just sort of drove round and came back to where he parked in the first place, and then sort of staggered into his flat, or his mum's flat, and that's where they found him on the sofa, you know, covered in blood.
It's a miracle he survived that, isn't it?
Yeah, and not only survived it, but survived it really quickly. You know, it was quite. Those first videos he did on YouTube were, you know, only a month or two after the shooting. I mean, he had a big scar on his head, but he otherwise looked, you know, pretty untouched. You know, so maybe it's not surprising that he thought he'd been saved by God. You know.
Yeah, and they didn't mention anything about a stolen chain in court. You know, what caused this? Because I think in your Substack I saw you said that oftentimes they don't need to prove intent for things like this. Is that true?
Yeah, it can be quite annoying when you're trying to report a case and you're trying to zhuzh it up. You know, especially for the public, people on reading my Substack or whatever. I'm thinking, you know, they want the juice. Why did this happen? What was it all about? But the prosecutor, he's just trying to get that person convicted, and he just needs, you know, to prove that person, you know, there was was enough evidence to say that they did it. He doesn't need to prove why. So quite often they just completely leave out all sorts of stuff about gang affiliations or drill videos that might have triggered it, or chains that were stolen, or Instagram influencers who might have been involved. If it's irrelevant to proving his guilt, then they will leave it out.
So let's say the rest of their evidence is kind of weak. Would they be able to use that to strengthen their case, or is that not able to? Does it have no effect on the case?
I mean, sometimes I think they bring it in to try to sort of gild the lily kind of thing, to sort of make it look a bit more. When maybe they think in the jury are thinking, why was this? What I need to know what was it all about. They might bring in a bit of evidence to prove that this person had a grudge. They had a grudge against each other. Might sort of show videos of people slagging each other off, that sort of thing. But
One more thing as well about this Digdat case, which everyone's been asking. All right, was Digdat using legal aid?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't have been revealed in court. He had a very good barrister, Casey.
Yeah.
But whether she was paid for by you and me or whether he paid for her, I don't know. Yeah.
Because is it true because the prosecutor was Casey that even if he was on legal aid, which we don't know, his counsel would have to be Casey if it was legal aid?
Yeah, basically, yeah. In most, all murder cases, or that was a conspiracy to murder, but that was attempted murder. So, but in those cases, yeah, it's a Casey against Casey. It's not, you have to have or silk, as they call it. So otherwise it would just look unfair, I guess, if you had somebody who's better than the other guy, or woman.
Yeah, it was two women going against
that was
each other
completely.
as well. Yeah.
Everybody was a woman. The judge was a woman. The prosecutor was a woman. The defense. Yeah.
And a lot of people as well, because I think a lot of people don't understand why your job is so important, what you do is so important. Because in the UK, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think they trialed allowing cameras in courts a couple years ago, but I don't think they're really any closer to allowing that to happen. So
they're only allowed for sentencing. And then it's they keep very closely on the judge. They don't sort of pan around, show the rest of the court. In Scotland, it's different. In Scotland, they do allow cameras in. They've had quite a few really good documentaries where they sort of filmed murder trials. But here, down south, we don't have it.
And even in the Old Bailey, because I remember when I did A-level law, and we went on a trip to the Old Bailey, and we had to pay a shop across the road to hold our phones.
Oh yeah.
So really, when you're in the court, you can't even use an iPad or anything. You have to be taking down notes with pen and paper.
Journalists are allowed to bring our phones in.
Okay.
Which is why I can tweet. Obviously, so I'm sometimes doing it on my phone, sometimes doing it on a laptop. But if you're in the public gallery, if you're a member of the public, come to see a trial, you have to leave your phone with a travel agent down the road. Yes, it's a bit strange, but I think that's partly because they don't want people, people who are ignorant of the law in the public gallery, or even people who know the law but are going to try it on, filming the defendant in the dock. Or filming the trial, or just taking a quick, still, because that could be quite,
it could mess up the whole trial, couldn't it?
Yeah, and plus you could take a picture, you could share it on social media. They could come and sort of arrest you or whatever, but it'd be too late, wouldn't it? The picture would already be out there. So
you could get a serious sentence for that, couldn't you? If you really mess up.
You would get. I think you would get some jail time if you took a picture of anything in the trial, in the courtroom.
So you are okay. So are you allowed to record audio then, or nothing?
No audio. No.
So I want to know your process when you're in the courtroom. Then you're watching the trial. How are you noting all of this? You're just tweeting as it goes along, or you're noting everything down, or
I can
it
show you how to do shorthand, but it's all shorthand. That's all you're allowed to take down, so you're not allowed to record anything. So quite often you have to check with the with somebody, you know. So I'd say you were talking too fast. I missed that. You know, can you tell me what said? Sometimes you have defendants or witnesses giving evidence, and they've got a really strong accent, or they've got a really quiet voice, sometimes the acoustics in the courtroom is really bad, and it's really difficult to hear. It can be quite annoying. You have to, you know, go and double check what exactly was said. Sometimes, you know, you're checking with other journalists. You know, what did he say there? Because you don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah. So what was the mood like in the courtroom? Just to wrap up on Dig That, when he got found guilty, like what was the mood in the courtroom like? Was it just?
I wasn't actually in court when it came in, because, you know, obviously these things happen sometimes. You know, the jury can be out for quite a few days, and you can't just literally sit there all the time, you know, like watching a kettle boil. You know, so I missed it when he actually was found guilty. But
It was only 4 hours, you said, isn't it?
I think, I think he, I don't think there was any great emotion. I think he sort of maybe saw it coming. There was no hysterics or screaming or shouting, or took it like a man, kind of thing. But yeah.
Damn, Bads. What was the other trial you wanted to ask him about?
Yeah, there's a couple trials that like a lot of people were wondering about. But I have a question. A lot of people, I feel like there's a grey area around this right now. Like, how far can lyrics really go in like a trial to like imprison someone? Like, could it be used as like the main evidence, or like what is the?
Yeah, there is another trial on at the moment, which I won't go into too much detail, but involves some lyrics. That was actually lyrics that somebody had written down, rather than, you know, a song that had actually gone out on YouTube. It was just some sort of lyrics. But sometimes, you know, if somebody writes a lyric and it's got a lot of evidence of, you know, it's very similar to the facts of a murder or a shooting or whatever, stabbing, then it can be quite incriminating. You know, like, why would you be writing about this if you weren't involved, or if you weren't actually there, you know? So obviously the Laughing Stock case, we know that he mentioned a gun, it was a Glock, I think, wasn't it, that had been used in the same shooting. I think
Sour Sig.
Sorry, a Sig, yeah, Sig Sauer, yeah. Yeah, that's right. It was a Sig. And yeah, so that nobody else could have known that apart from those involved in the shooting. So came back on him quite badly.
I was wondering, was you at the suspect trial?
Yes.
Suspect AGV?
Yeah, that's right.
There was a lot of rumours floating around about that trial.
Yeah.
There was a guy in the jury that was wearing a Trapstar jacket or something. Did you ever hear about that one?
I don't remember that, but I don't think they would that necessarily.
I don't know. There was some guy, I can't remember where I saw this. Some guy was saying like, "Oh yeah, don't worry, suspect's gonna be freed." There was a guy in the jury that's wearing a Trapstar jacket.
Oh right, yeah.
On his side. But was there anything about that case that can be?
Well,
like
yeah, that you might sort of think, you know, if somebody that, you know, they know rap and whatever, that they're gonna quit you, but that doesn't mean they could be taking their job very seriously. They're just a bit of a fan of rap, you know.
Yeah, damn. So do you remember much about the suspect trial? Because it was about a year ago now.
I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, so I've forgotten a lot of it, but I do remember. I mean, I remember him and his mate, or Swavey, wasn't it? Who went to Kenya.
They're in Kenya.
And I think while he was there, he ever got a woman pregnant.
Yeah, he has a wife out there. He has a son out there.
Yeah.
Was he actually only extradited back? Did they actually only find out where he was because of that picture that he posted?
Like
that's right. Yeah.
That's actually the reason.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah. They often have to sort of track people down that way, don't they? They probably, because I think, wasn't he mate Somali or something? So they might have thought it was Somalia, but
yeah,
you know, I guess the that picture you're talking about, you know, suddenly made them. They can sort of Google it, kind of Google search, and
apparently it was. What happened is there are people saying that it might have been the UK drill Reddit that made suspect get caught, because suspect posted that picture, and then in the UK dual Reddit, somebody was like, "That looks like my auntie's house in Kenya. That plug over there," and that's how you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What you mean? So Reddit grassed him up. Or?
Reddit. That's what it feels like. Reddit grassed him up.
Yeah. Well, I guess people are just sort of chatting shit, aren't they? They're saying, "Oh, that looks like my near where my gran lives in Kenya or something."
No,
and
but because of the
police
plug,
reading that. There's police
because of the plug. Like it's like something. There was something in the kitchen that like is only found like in Kenya kitchens.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's how they like literally. They weren't even chatting shit. They were actually talking facts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, you'll be surprised. Maybe you're not surprised how there's cops. They've got a special unit that's monitoring social media.
Oh.
So they know what's going on. They'll quite often after there's a murder, they'll be looking on socials. Who's responding to that? Who's that'll give them a first clue of if they all don't already know which gangs are involved or whatever. So looking at mobile phones then, because
it seems like these days a lot of people, including Digdat and that, they're only getting caught because of cell site. It seems like cell site is the strongest evidence that can pin them to locations and social media. So because you've been doing this for a while now, would you say in this new age that a lot of the murder convictions you've seen or convictions you've seen are because of cell site, because of people taking their phones with them or social media posts?
Yeah, or sometimes, people have got savvy to that and they deliberately switch their phones off. I remember a cash in transit robbery gang a few years ago. They were based in London, but they would go and rob Essex and Gloucestershire and stuff, and they would switch their phones off, drive and go and do the robbery, and then only switch it on when they came back to London. And there's quite often the case in a lot of these murder cases as well. People, they know what cell site does, so they will turn their phones off, or they will specifically buy a burner phone, sometimes referred to as a mission phone. So your mission is to go and kill someone. Let's buy a phone just for that mission, and then as soon as it's happened, just dispose of it. I don't understand, to be honest, why the government don't, just make it the law that when you're buying a phone, a pay-as-you-go phone, you have to prove your ID. You would have thought that would stop it.
It's like that in a lot of Asian countries, African countries.
Yeah, because now so many trials, so many drug dealing cases as well is all about a burner phone. They're known as the line. So it'd be like this is the chess line or whatever. This is and drug dealers will sell that phone to another drug dealer.
Oh yeah,
because it's got a load of all their customers will just be texting that number. Where do I get my heroin or whatever? So I don't understand why burner phones just the government doesn't do something to get rid of them, because they pop up far more often in trials than anything else. But yeah, cell site evidence is pretty key as well. But
is like the most common mistake you've seen in cases and trials.
Talking the mic, brother.
What's like the most common mistake you've seen people make, that gets them arrested or gets them convicted? Is there a common mistake that these people just seem to make?
Yeah, I guess people know all the the things that are going to get them caught is their phones, their DNA, car ID, CCTV. So they will, largely try to stay away from those. But you can't always know where there's a CCTV camera. You can't get away. But a lot of, what I didn't realise until quite recently is how many cars, like modern cars, because they've all got these computers that update the engine, and it's like having a little grass in your car. So even if you might have new number plates on it, you might have fake number plates, so you think nobody's going to tell what that car is, but you've got a SIM card in that phone, which is constantly, say it's a Renault car. It's constantly referring back to Renault. This is where the car is. This is what speed it's going. This is what direction it's going. They all even say things like, "This is when the boot opened. This is when the boot closed." It's like a little grass, Yeah. So the police, once they find that car, they can prove exactly, you know, where it's been. You know,
Is that only in the
you
newer
really need
cars?
to buy an old banger. You know, you need to really buy an old car that doesn't have any of that technology. That
I'm trying to
See,
make
it's-
us all go electric.
yeah,
So you're telling me in these new cars, like they can literally track its location, all of that. They can look all of that.
yeah. There's that case recently, the Paul Allen shooting, where this gang, they got a hired Renault Captur, and it had a little. The police found the SIM card, and it told them exactly where that car had been, like the whole. And even there was another case where they put the SIM card in a laptop, thrown it in the river, and then the police found the laptop in the Thames. They sort of worked out where the data is. So
Damn.
yeah,
So do you,
beware.
so do you reckon in this modern age, because a lot of people don't think the police really do a good job with stopping crime. Do you think without all of these things like car SIM cards, did you say? That's all mad. Car SIM cards, cell site, car SIM cards, you know.
Yeah.
Car SIM cards, cell site, social media. Do you think people would get away with these things a lot easier? Because even with CCTV as well, I want to ask you a follow-up question to that as well. With CCTV, is it hard to attain? Is it sometimes the cameras don't work, or do they need to get a warrant to force the business to give them the access? They say London
Yeah.
is, I think, per person has the most cameras in the world for the city. I don't know if that's changed.
Which one? Which city has got the most?
London.
All right. Yeah.
I think I saw a stat somewhere saying that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
So I would think that it would be possible for them to follow somebody on every camera. But that's easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the first things they will do if there's been a shooting or a murder or a stabbing or whatever, will go around all the houses and get your CCTV. Even your Ring doorbell cameras are producing quite a lot of good footage as well. And nowadays, people, might be people filming it as well on their phones, so that they'll get all that imagery. And yeah, definitely, London is one of the most surveilled cities. Much more than America. America is sort of doesn't have so much CCTV as we do. Yeah. The quality of it can still be a bit crap sometimes, but I think it's getting better, and it's probably is harder to find somewhere in London to shoot your target or stab somebody which is not going to be quite close to CCTV.
And with a change of clothes as well, let's just say hypothetical.
I've just thought of an answer to your question, right? We're coming on to, you were saying what is the dumbest thing people do or mistakes.
Oh.
Sometimes it's wearing a really obvious piece of clothing. So, it might be your favorite hoodie or whatever, but if it's got like a really distinctive flash or distinctive colors or whatever, don't wear it. Just wear plain black clothing or something, which nobody can say, well, that's clearly, that same, because it's too easy to identify people by clothing.
So if you're wearing very even let's say I'm just wearing a black hoodie that's not very distinguishable.
Yeah.
And they catch me doing what they said, and I burn it. Is that enough evidence?
What, just they find it in your...
No, let me say again. If they were able to prove that I was wearing the same thing, but it's just a generic black outfit that anyone could be wearing, and it gets burned and they're not able to find any DNA on it, would that be sufficient evidence in court?
I think it would be mentioned as sort of like, it's a bit suspicious. Why did he burn his hoodie? Burn your clothing.
Well, if they wouldn't be able to prove it was me that burned it, and it was, it's not in my house,
they just find it.
They just have another CCTV video of me wearing something that looks similar to it.
Yeah,
it's the same outfit, but anyone could have it.
Yeah, no, I don't think that would really help them prove anything. I mean, even if they'd say, well, where's your black hoodie? That you're wearing here. You could just say, oh, I got rid of it, or I lost it somewhere, or it's not. They can't prove. That's not really going to work with a jury to say, well, he must have got, he hasn't got it now, and so yeah, that's why I'm not trying to give clues to people, but get rid of all your clothing, even if you have to sort of make up some dodgy excuse how you've got rid of it. It's better than them possibly finding DNA on it.
Yeah. So with I'm snussed off, man. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh, okay. What's like the slickest way you've seen someone like get away with like a trial, like a murder or something? What's like the coolest way? Like this guy just managed to wiggle his way out of it.
Running away to Morocco.
That's where he's from as well.
But although that didn't prove to be too clever for Lee Murray, because he actually ended up serving much more time there than he would have if it had stayed here. You know.
They say they never found the money, isn't it?
Well, yeah, they haven't found most of the money as well. I gonna have to come back to you on the cleverest person getting away with it. But yeah.
In the meantime, though, I've always wondered this: like, what's the longest time you've seen in like a court or something? What's the longest time you've seen between like the crime and the guy getting charged?
Well, yeah, I do remember I covered a trial a couple of years, more recent than that. It might have been last year, where the crime had been committed in 1975, something like that.
The guy probably thought he got away with it.
Yeah,
Because
it was all in Finsbury Park, Highbury.
No way.
And it was talking about those, when Highbury was still Arsenal's ground, and and it was like you were in a time machine. There's like a very old guy was on trial, and he was accused of murdering this prostitute, as she would have been called then, now sex worker.
Content creator nowadays.
She was found behind the back of some garages, and it was DNA that they all these years later they got him with. But yeah, it seemed really weird that it was sort of just all the evidence, just talking about what people, somebody was sort of in a pub and they were smoking, and it just felt really ancient history, but yeah.
So there's really no time limit between like you've done a crime. There's really like people would probably let's say someone who's gotten away with it for like 50 years. He's probably thinking he's in the clear, but
there's another trial coming up this year where the defendant is about 92 or something like that, and I think it's a murder, and it happened in something like 1967 or so. Yeah, the police have got long memories if they really want you.
Yeah. Have you ever been called up for jury duty?
No, amazingly, I've never. It's just like a lottery, I suppose, but never been called up.
My granddad's been called up like 4 times.
Yeah, exactly. It's like winning the lottery 4 times, or never winning at all.
Yeah. So because sometimes juries take a long time. Have you ever seen like a jury just like what would happen if there's just one jury member who's just like, no, this person didn't do it.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like, he did it, but this one person just says he didn't do it.
I guess that probably has happened. You never find out what has happened, but you do wonder sometimes, why is it taking them so long? I remember this terrorism trial, Operation Crevice. So it's probably about 15 years ago. They went out, for a verdict, and I went on holiday to Australia for about 2 weeks. Came back on holiday, and they still hadn't brought a verdict. There was like something. It was like a record. They were out for like 23 days.
Wow!
And eventually, they found them guilty. Found most of the defendants guilty. And you think, what's taking so long?
What's the time? So what's the time frame that juries actually have to sit in a room and deliberate? So like, let's say in them 23 days, is it 9 to 5? Is it only within those hours?
It's 10 till 4. With lunch break, so yeah, they're doing. So what is that? It's about 3 hours in the morning, 2 and a bit in the afternoon. So yeah, 5 hours a day. That could be 25 hours a week. Can be quite a long time.
What do these people?
I think they seem to take longer than they used to. In the day, even you look at old records of in the days when they used to execute people, sometimes juries would be out for 2 hours, come back, guilty, and the guy would be hanged 3 months later or something.
What the hell?
Now they're taking a lot longer, and if somebody's they're not going to die anyway. But that's probably better than getting it wrong, I guess.
Yeah. Damn, 8 till 4. So that is long, you know. That's long. That's a long time. What do they do for work? Like, if they're self-employed, even like how do they get paid or?
Yeah, they get a small amount of pay, which is basically supposed to cover your expenses and whatever, you know. So, but usually, yeah, the employer will be expected. It's like a duty. So I'm sure the employers will be like, oh, great, you know, so and so's on a 3-month trial, but they can't do anything about it. The only, you know, you quite often get the employer right into the judge saying, you know, this is killing my company. Like, please, can we have this person back or whatever? And the judge is usually telling them no. But if it's a self-employed person, say, you know, painter, decorator, or his entire business depends on him, or, you know, say like a content creator or somebody who's, you know, if they go missing for 3 months, their whole business could fold up. You know, they can sometimes persuade a judge to let them off. You know,
sometimes you say, not all the time.
Well, no, most of the time. I think.
Most of the time,
If they can prove that it's going to really going to hit them sort of unfairly, that they will usually be let off.
Because if I have a question, if I were called to jury duty because it's 10 to 4, I'd be able to work around that. So,
Yeah.
but would I even be able to be coming on social media, just not talking about the case, of course,
Yeah.
but just acting normal? Would
Yeah.
would
Yeah,
the
oh,
judge
yeah.
let that happen?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody was on night shifts, I suppose they could technically. Well, they weren't. I don't know when they would sleep. But, they had a pub job or something in the evenings. They could probably work, but I guess a lot of people would just say, "Well, no, I'm on jury service. I don't need to work." And but yeah, you could work around it.
Do you know any figures, like a figure that someone would be paid during jury duty if they have
I
like a
don't.
normal job?
No, I don't think you're going to make money out of it.
Okay.
But it's supposed to just about cover, you know, that you're not going to be out of pocket, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not lucrative.
I just remember the big one. Like a lot of people want to know about this. I was wondering, were you at the SJ OFB trial?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, because I heard
Remind me what that was about.
he's another rapper. He's from North London. But I heard there was like a fight that happened in the courtroom.
Oh,
Have
right.
you ever seen like a fight break out in the courtroom?
I've been unlucky enough. There was actually an incident today at the
No way.
yeah. I wasn't there, but I hear that one of the defendants punched another defendant.
It's co-defendant.
But yeah, you do get that. I remember a case again where I wasn't there, but I heard about it later, where it was a murder trial, and there was a woman who was like the honey trap, and she had lured this guy to her flat, and then he was shot outside, and she gave evidence, basically playing down her role, but grassing all the other guys up and saying, you know, they told me to come. I didn't know what he was there for, you know. They just told me to bring him over and all that. And she got off, and her co-defendants all went down. And after, I think it was while the jury were still deliberating, one of the guys started beating the crap out of her in the dock.
Oh my
God. And the prison officers were apparently useless. They were not doing anything. And then one of the policemen had to sort of run in there and protect her, you know.
Yeah. The prison officers even have any jurisdiction in the courts?
Well, I mean, I should technically they're custody officers or dock officers. So they're usually employed by what do you call them? Secure Group 4 or one of those.
I think secure
private companies.
Serco.
That's it.
Serco. All good for security.
Yeah. So Serco get paid to bring those people from prison, so they're not actually prison officers. They are Serco dock officers. Usually, there's not enough of them, so quite often you get trials delayed for ages because there's not enough dock officers to look after them all.
Oh wow!
If you have like a 5-hander trial, there's got to be a certain amount of officers. Got to be more than 5. Probably 6 or 8. To protect. To be there, monitoring them. So sometimes there's just not enough. If there's there's loads of different trials with loads of different defendants. Serco don't have enough staff, so delays.
See, they give it to a private company and they can't even do it properly.
Yeah, that's right. It's been quite controversial, and the lawyers get really pissed off about it because it delays their trials. It's a bit unfair, especially if you're giving evidence, or say you're on trial and you have to wait ages. Imagine how anxious that you already are at that stage.
Isn't it kind of scary that a private company has the power to delay a trial?
Yeah.
A private organization has the power to do that kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Well, don't get me started on privatization and all that.
Oh, that's another one. Even
private prisons now as well. Right?
Yeah, private prisons. I looked into that a couple months ago and I realized it's scary because I forgot which one. I think it was a prison in Birmingham, Ashton. I don't know if I could be completely wrong there, guys. That was voted like the worst prison. Like I think a prison official. I think the government minister of prisons or something said it was the worst prison they'd ever seen, and it was run by some French company.
Right. Yeah.
Some French. I don't even know. Some French company that's running a British prison, and they're doing such a terrible job at it.
Yeah, I know it does beg a belief sometimes.
Yeah, it's like how many of the prisons are even private? The majority of them now?
No, not that many. I think it tends to be a lot of the newer ones. They've built them and they've immediately given the contract to a private company.
Because I want to think
all the old ones, like Wormwood Scrubs and all that. They're all prison service.
Yeah, because I want to think. I'm trying to think about where in this whole justice system and prison system are private companies profiting? Because the guards are private. The prison, what are they called again? The dock officers, they're private.
Yeah,
there are private prisons. Where else are they profiting? Are they running? Are they on the court?
The food. I mean, famously, the guy who escaped from Wandsworth Prison, he escaped underneath one of the caterers' lorries, didn't he?
Okay.
So somebody's got the contract to provide food for Wandsworth Prison. I presume there's some profit going on there, but I'm not saying them earning, loads of money or the food's not terrible. I don't know.
Well, they're going to cut costs wherever they can, aren't they?
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah, damn.
I was wondering, was you in on that Axel Rudakabana trial?
No,
court killer.
No, that was up north, wasn't it? Liverpool. But I was really interested when it happened. It sounds quite a dramatic day when he suddenly sort of he suddenly went guilty.
I heard he started screaming or something in court. He started shouting in court or something that he hadn't been fed or something.
Yeah, I think. I mean, they couldn't prove that he was mentally ill, but he was surely. I mean, nobody normal does that, do they? So,
because the main question people have is like, why?
Yeah,
just like why? Because at first, obviously, with the Southport riots and stuff like that, when they said he was a Muslim, but there's still debate about that. That raised a lot of tensions.
Yeah,
but it's like. If it wasn't terrorism, then like what was it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like this TV show, Adolescence. It makes you think. What sometimes, people do some crazy things, and some of it is driven by what they're seeing on the internet or whatever. I mean, there was that case where I covered a case where the guy brought a loaded crossbow to the Windsor Castle. And he was planning to kill the Queen.
Oh, God.
With a crossbow on Christmas Day 2021, I think it was.
Oh, God.
And turned out he'd been chatting to a chatbot, like an AI chatbot. And, well, firstly, he said because he was Sikh, but he was obsessed with Star Wars. So he said he was like a Sikh Sith assassin. And then he was basically flirting with this chatbot. It was like a female chatbot, and he was sort of saying, if I go and kill the Queen, well, is that a great idea? And she was encouraging him, so it's just like, what the hell,
just mad.
New technology has sometimes got something to answer for itself.
And how long ago was this? You said it was a few years ago?
He was sentenced, again, was it last year or a year before? But, they had lots of mental health evidence, was he mad or bad, and I think they eventually decided that he was not really mentally ill. He was just strange.
So you saying that Axel didn't get Axel they couldn't prove Axel was mental health. They couldn't prove that this Sikh or this guy who planned on using a crossbow to kill the Queen was mental health. So is the burden of proving mental health, it must be high then, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be quite high. I mean, I covered another case a year or so ago where the guy was he wiped out his girlfriend's mother, and I think it was girlfriend's grandmother and boyfriend. So the whole house. It was in Bermondsey.
He killed all of them.
Killed all of them. Stabbed them, I think. And it was while he was high. Well, basically, he'd been smoking too much weed, and it had made him psychotic.
Yeah.
So that was actually, he was had a sort of mental health defense, which basically, I didn't know what I was doing because I'd been smoking so much weed, it made me, incapable, So he was claiming manslaughter due to diminished responsibility, but they managed to prove that it was still murder,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Basically, I think it was basically because, well, you knew, what the cannabis was doing to you, so you should have just stopped smoking.
Oh, that's what they say.
The fact you carried on doing it means that's not going to be a defence. You knew, you still knew what was right and wrong when you killed them all.
Yeah, because there's this drug I used to take called Xanax. I ain't taken it in years, by the way. Just saying. And if you take too much of it, it makes you not black out, but you literally don't remember what you're doing. You have no clue what you're doing. So if I were to murder somebody off of that, and go to court and literally, it would be the same thing. They would say, well, you know what the Xanax could do to you, so I'd be found guilty of murder then.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
most likely.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a defence that you would probably offer, wouldn't you? But they might be able to prove that you knew what you were doing. When you weren't on the drug, you knew what you're doing, so therefore you chose. It's like somebody committing a crime when they're really drunk. They might kill their girlfriend when they weren't. They wouldn't have done if they were sober, but you chose to get drunk, so that that's no defence.
So if I was spiked, it would be different. If I did it after I got spiked, it'd be a completely different.
I think if you could prove, well, I had no idea somebody put some substance in my drink, then you might have a better chance.
What if it's different? I know we're going off of what ifs, but it's interested here. So let's say something really traumatic happened to me, and I overdose on that drug, just to black out, just like I don't want to be in reality anymore. Would that increase my chances of being able to claim that it was, what would it be called, out of control manslaughter?
Well, after you've killed somebody?
Yeah, but I do it under that drug where it's like if you take too much of it, you actually don't know what's going on. You can't even remember what happened. And that's the reason I did it. Would that increase the chances or?
I don't know. I think it's case by case. Sometimes, cases are quite similar evidence, and one jury will find somebody guilty and one they won't. So it depends. But yeah, you can have a defence of loss of control, which sounds like what you're talking about.
Yeah. Have you ever seen any people successfully prove loss of control or mental health along those lines?
Not very often. No, it's usually a defence you would try as a sort of last resort, but it doesn't very often work. Yeah, I mean, more often people who are mentally ill will get they'll get off murder, but they're still going to a psychiatric hospital for a long time. But maybe quite rightly they're not going, they're not in jail for murder because they were paranoid schizophrenic or had some other psychosis. Yeah.
Damn.
A bit of a change in topic, but I feel like a lot of people will wonder this in this country, especially. You know how in America, they'll use RICOs if they want to take out a whole gang or a whole mob. What's the UK equivalent, if any?
Yeah, well, we don't really have anything like that. Yeah, you quite often see these massive indictments in America. Yeah, like you say, RICO indictment against MS-13 or the
They were just
trained
on
the
a new one.
Aragua, all these gangs.
One came out like last week against the Rolling 60 Crips.
Mm.
Just in like one move, 30 of them just taken out there.
Yeah.
They were on trial.
Yeah, no, I don't. They don't have a similar kind of legislation here.
You think they
I mean,
might
I don't know if
introduce-
the gangs here are quite as organised as that. You don't have, like, I mean, and they're, yeah, exactly, like the Rolling 60 Crips is a
Yeah.
pretty sophisticated gang, but
I'm sure there is though. There's like firms.
yeah.
In the UK, there are a lot of those big like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of
cartel
what's Chris Cabba's gang called. I can't forgot. one of the-
6-7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You could arguably say, you could have had a RICO indictment against the 6-7s, but they didn't. There is no such legislation
Why do
now.
you think they haven't like brought that in yet?
I don't know how it would help more than. I mean, it's a bit like. I mean, yeah, it's a good point because you could say, making a gang like a prescribed terrorist organisation, because you have trials where they have to prove you are a member of ISIS or the Provisional IRA or whatever, and you would have thought, how do you prove that you're a member of something? You don't carry around a little membership card, but they can prove it. There was a guy, Anjem Chowdhury, he was like an Islamist preacher, and he kept changing the name of his organisation. It was Al Muhajirun was the first one, and he kept changing it, and they were prosecuting him. You are a member of Al Muhajirun, even though you've changed the name several times, but we are still going to prosecute you for that crime. So you could presumably, make gangs terrorist organisations, like Trump has recently with all the Mexican cartels. He's made them terrorist organisations.
Were you there for the Chris Cabba trial?
Yeah, the policeman. Yeah,
Yeah, you were there.
yeah.
Yeah, what?
I mean, especially what was interesting, the sort of preamble hearings, where the guy was originally just known as, I've forgotten his number now, but he was police. He was given this number, and he couldn't be identified. And it was all question of, is he going to be able to be identified or not?
What's a preamble hearing?
Well, like a legal hearing before the trial. So there was lots of, there was loads of lawyers. The police federation, the Metropolitan Police had their own lawyers who were arguing, no, he mustn't be named because once he's named, he'll be. I mean, they were saying that Chris Cabba's gang had made death threats to him. So as soon as they found out who he really was, him and his family would be in danger. So
Which is a
but
fair
the
argument.
judge decided to name him.
It's a fair argument they made, I think.
What, that he should be named?
Now that he shouldn't have been named. I think it's fair to say he shouldn't have been named because there was a lot of tensions around the time as well.
Yeah, but then again, you get people, you get people charged with murder, and they're named. So you get Turkish gangs killing each other, or there's always, if you're charged with murdering someone, that rival gang will want to kill you once they know your name. So you could say anyone should get anonymity, but we don't go down that road.
Yeah, I think because it involved the police, and with black people in the police,
Yeah.
like with us in the police, like it's just gonna. I think until he was found, but then it's techie. It's a difficult one,
I was
whether he should have been named or not. I don't know.
I was quite surprised that that the judge did decide to name him, and then obviously he got found not guilty in the end. So,
Yeah. Did he lose his job? Or
no, I'm not sure. I doubt he's a firearms officer anymore. But he didn't. No, he wouldn't have been sacked by the police. I don't think.
yeah, with that case, was it? Because what were they trying to get him on? Murder? Was it?
Yeah, he was charged with murder. Yeah.
Murder's a bit.
And I remember when that trial started, I think everybody was quite surprised because we all assumed that he was going to say, I saw Chris Cabba get a gun, or I thought he had a gun. And that wasn't what he claimed at all. He just claimed that the way he was driving the car, reversing it and try to get out, he thought that would end up with a policeman being killed. So that's why they shot him, I thought. So,
And that defense worked. I'm surprised that defense worked.
Yeah, it worked, yeah.
because in the video that I'm sure we've all seen, it looked like he could have just moved out of the way. No one else shot. He's the only one who shot.
Yeah, and you would have thought, well, surely you just box him in, and he can't, much as he can smash and
Shoot the
Shoot
tires.
the tires, yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Because if this was in America, I can understand because they're more trigger happy there. But in the UK, it's like the police. They're usually more reserved. The fight, like you rarely hear police shootings here. So
Yeah.
and it didn't seem like he needed to shoot him.
Well, the jury had made their decision.
Yeah,
Again, that was another one where I was a little bit surprised maybe by the outcome, but
yeah. When you went into there, did you think he's going to get charged, or did you didn't expect him to get not guilty? Did you?
no, well, it was especially because I was surprised. I thought his defense was going to be, I saw him reaching for a gun, because that's quite hard to disprove. If you thought somebody was reaching for a gun and you shot them, fair enough. Even if they didn't find a gun, you could, a jury could believe it. But that wasn't even what he was saying. He wasn't saying, I didn't see him reach for a gun or anything. It was just the way he was driving the car. So,
And where was that trial? Was it the Old Bailey?
yeah, that was the Old Bailey as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, most trials at the Old Bailey, sometimes they send them to Woolwich, which can be a real pain because it's really difficult to get to, and a lot of journalists won't travel all the way there. So sometimes you don't get trials that aren't covered.
The only link to Woolwich is the DLR, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's right next to the Belmarsh show, so that's why they sometimes choose to have them there, because if you've got a high security prisoner who you think might try to escape, you can have it there and they can just come in. There's a tunnel linking Belmarsh to the court,
Okay.
and there's no way they're escaping, sort of thing. Had quite a good trial there, I think it was last year, with a guy called Nana Oppong.
Oh yeah. I know about him.
Who's he's a bit of an underworld legend because he got convicted of his fourth murder.
Yeah, you know what they say?
So he had 3 not guilties.
They say that he uses juju to like beat his cases.
Oh,
Yeah, like black magic and stuff.
well, that may explain a lot.
That's
Yeah,
what they say, like he beat all the other trials.
yeah,
You know Dutchavelli's manager?
Oh yeah, Fox.
Yeah, that's
the guy,
right.
Fox, yeah, that's the guy who just got. Did he get guilty for that?
yeah. He got guilty. Yeah.
But the guy who passed.
Yeah.
They followed him. It was a party out in Essex, and it was sort of like an all-night party. And then about like 5 o'clock in the morning, Fox Powell, Dutchavelli's manager, was coming out, and the hitman drove past and shot him. So it was a proper professional hit,
But the Fox he's talking about, the manager, he was killed, wasn't he?
That's what we're talking about.
And this happened. Wait, so they found him. So they found him guilty of it while he was alive.
Oh yeah, they found Oppong guilty of it.
Yeah, they find him. He was alive when they found him guilty.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah.
Fox, isn't he?
No, Fox is dead. That's the guy he killed.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. Nana Oppong
Nana Oppong
guilty
killed him.
of killing Fox.
Oh, right. So Dutchavelli's manager was the one who got killed,
Got killed.
Yeah.
and it was by Nana Oppong,
By Nana Oppong.
the guy who got not guilty 3 times before
Yeah.
By judge.
by judge. Definitely. I think that's a first. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, the 4 that's a world record. That is.
Damn,
That's some good going.
it was close to beating the record.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But that was also quite interesting because in that trial there was lots of evidence about how they were following him on his social media. So be careful if you've got Instagram or whatever. A lot of people, live streaming. This is where I am. I'm having a party tonight or whatever, and they were like literally following him. Exactly. They knew where he was. That's how they shot him.
Damn.
So if somebody's after you, I mean, I guess maybe he didn't know that people were after him, but scary.
Anything else to ask, Bets?
Yeah, I got a couple, man. I could keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you know, if you follow any cases from America, do you have a little insight into? Do you ever slightly cover some American trials?
When I was at the BBC, I used to cover more American trials. So I mean, I didn't cover this one, but I know Casey Anthony. Do you remember that one? That was a woman who basically, well, she got acquitted amazingly of killing a young child and burying her in Florida, and then went out. She went out night clubbing and stuff. But it was quite a big story. But I did interview once Tookie Williams, who was the co-founder of the Crips.
Oh, is it?
Interviewed him on death row in San Quentin 2 years before he was executed. So yeah.
Oh. Actually, what state was he in? Oh, California.
California. Yeah. It was. I don't know. You might remember it because Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor, and so he terminated him. And there was a big diplomatic row about it. I think lots of celebrities were saying you shouldn't die. Like Snoop Dogg and people.
Yeah. Do they still have the death penalty in California?
Yeah.
That's surprising. I would have thought that'd be the last place now to have it.
Yeah, you would have thought kind of a liberal place. You would have thought they would have done away with it, but no, they have. I don't think they execute very many people, not like Texas or something.
Texas, I'd think places like Louisiana, Alabama, they'll kill you next week.
Yeah. Even where I did an article Substack about it the other day about I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina where they executed somebody by firing squad.
That must have been South Carolina.
First time in a couple of years.
First time for 15 years.
And by the way, guys, I'm going to link it in the description. Be sure to check out Chris's Substack as well.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that.
What can people expect on there? Why should people subscribe to it?
Totalcrime.substack.com. It's long reads about trials that I'm covering, and sometimes it's about old stuff that I've covered years ago. But more recently, it's a lot of contemporary stuff. I'm doing one this week about mental health, police sort of shootings, or cases where people die, not shootings, but people die after having an interaction with the police while mentally ill. So Dalian Atkinson, the footballer,
I heard about
died. Things like that. Another guy died recently on Chelsea Bridge because he was the police tasered him and he fell in the water and drowned. But it's also plenty of drill rappers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's what my audience are going to want to see the most. But
yeah,
it's definitely mental health. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one because it'll be an interesting read, but it's a difficult one with mental health because
because I mean,
how are they?
What are the police? Sometimes you don't know what somebody's screaming, standing in the red road, screaming, waving a screwdriver around. They seem like really threatening. You got to but if they're having a mental health crisis, I mean, I don't know what you would do. Even if it was a trained psychiatric nurse, or what do they do? How do they talk somebody down, kind of thing?
They've got family at home as well, so it makes it difficult. How do I handle this? Am I going to risk? What is this person going to do?
Yeah, exactly. The police now, what have they got? Tasers. They might have a stab-proof vest, but they're going to be probably pretty worried.
Yeah, what would even be a better solution? Something that's not as lethal as a gun, but something more useful than a taser and a baton and pepper spray.
Yeah, because some people have quite a resistance to tasers. You would have thought you taser somebody, they just fall down, but some people, they're up, and they're full of adrenaline or whatever, and they keep getting up, and it doesn't really seem to have much destructive. It doesn't do what you want it to do, which is incapacitate them. So,
maybe rubber bullets? Maybe
one of those little nets.
Them net guns.
Fire a net over them.
Yeah, the reason I brought up the America in the first place, I know a lot of people are gonna be wondering this, as am I. That have you come across the Lil Durk trial and on Twitter or something?
I'm vaguely aware of them. Yeah.
I was wondering if you know any of the case details or something. You think what kind of percentage chance this guy has of beating it?
No.
For murder for hire.
Is it? Yeah. Where is it in
LA?
Oh, LA, right.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I'm aware of them, but I don't try to cover them.
Yeah.
So yeah, difficult to say, but
I'll bring you back to this country then. I don't know if you know about, like, every time I hear people talking about Man City and their 115 charges, 150, like going to court anytime soon.
I don't know. That will just be the Premier League, you know,
Okay,
or
it's a
the
different type of court.
sport arbitration or whatever. They
Okay.
won't come to it. I mean, I covered one case where a team called Boston United got done for it was tax evasion. Basically, they were paying their players sort of under the table to avoid tax, and it was in a season where I think they were promoted, you know, I think from non-league to, you know, League Two or whatever. So all their rival teams were really pissed off. You know, a bit like Man City. You know, all their rival teams thought, well, that's not fair. You're paying your players more, and they were doing it, you know, under the table, and the manager got done for it. But so that was a criminal case. But I don't think Man City have done anything criminal. It's just, you know,
Staying on tax
dodgy.
law, actually, there was this case. I think the person got revealed. I can't remember the details because I read it vaguely, of this wealthy person or known person in the UK who, I think he had a case with HMRC, but he pulled out of the case because he didn't want his name to be revealed.
all right, yeah.
You know what I'm getting at?
No.
Yeah, it was. I think it was for tax of. I wish I could remember who the person was. But I think when you're in a tribunal with HMRC, I think the name gets revealed. But for some reason, he requested for his name not to be revealed,
Oh, right.
and his name's been revealed now.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a big mystery at the time. You definitely know it, but I can't remember it. But
All right. No, I don't know that one. But yeah, I have covered a few serious fraud office trials, you know, which can be kind of turgid, you know, they're kind of lots of, you know, figures and stuff, but can be quite interesting. One was a bribery case involving somebody doing like oil contracts in Iraq, and they were paying bribes to get contracts, you know.
oh, so that was kind of international.
Yeah, it was international, and they got done here for that crime. You know, bribery is a crime in British law.
What's the burden of proof for bribery?
Yeah, same as any other crime. You know, you gotta you know. Usually, there's sort of, you know, evidence that you've, you know, transferred money to somebody. And there was another case where the woman was she was the chief of staff to the prime minister or president of Madagascar.
Oh,
And she came over here, and she was doing contracts with a gemstone mining company, and she was basically saying, you know, you got to pay us money to get this contract, and, you know, basically she ended up getting done for bribery or corruption, basically. And the president in Madagascar said, "No, I don't know anything about it. I didn't tell her to go over there and do that. You know, she's on her own back. She's gone and done it." And
the sentences aren't that much here for frauds.
No, I think she got 5 years or something.
And she'll do half of that, won't she?
But it was quite sad because, you know, she had young kids and stuff, and they're all going to be without their mum for a few years. So I don't know why she did it, but maybe she just thought she could get away with it. Maybe she thought that's how business happens in London. You know?
Yeah. All right, well, then, Chris, thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
So last question. We'll ask you wrap
I'm
it up.
trying to think what that cases you're talking about, the tax one.
Yeah, that one. I'm gonna try to find it. I'm gonna try. Bads, you ask. I'm gonna try to find it.
But seeing as you cover like a lot of drill rappers, like cases and stuff, has there ever been a time where like they played the song in court and he thought, yeah, I kind of enjoyed this song. This guy's kind of talented.
Well, this is going to sound like a really weird answer, but there was a terrorism trial, and they had this. It was like a ISIS or Al Qaeda kind of terrorists, but they had this really catchy track. It was called "Dirty Kuffer."
No way.
And it was like a YouTube video of like lots of pictures of like George Bush and Tony Blair, but it was such a catchy track. It was really good. Yeah, I think it's probably been taken down numerous times because the lyrics are kind of pro-terrorist, but
You should listen to Dig That. You like Dig
Yeah,
That's
you like
music.
Dig
yeah.
I found the guy though,
Oh yeah, right.
Frankie Dettori.
Frankie Dettori,
Yeah,
is he being done for attacks?
the renowned jockey. Oh yeah, he's a jockey. Yeah, it said.
Yeah.
I remember this. He said he sought to keep his name confidential during a tax dispute. Thank you, ChatGPT. With HMRC, Dettori had participated in a tax avoidance scheme designed by Paul Baxendale Walker, which was later deemed a sham by a tax tribunal. Another thing as well that I've been looking
yes, I
at.
did read that he's in a lot of fun. That's why he's still like riding horses, and he's like 50 something
Damn,
because he needs the money.
damn, because I forgot where I saw this, but apparently in the UK, if you have a dodgy tax accountant, they really get off scot free. Even they get off scot free if they screw you over
Right.
by not paying the right tax.
So you will get down.
Yeah, but it's all you're the only one liable, isn't it? They're not
Oh,
liable.
right, yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, I haven't really covered any trials like that, but that probably is true. You know, if it's your name on the tax returns, even if your accountant files it, that you're reliable, I suppose, to it.
Because apparently a lot of these tax accountants that do these dodgy things, they basically sell their clients' dreams.
Right.
They're bagging on they're betting on the fact that HMRC won't look too deep into it and they'll get away with it. But when HMRC do look into it, they get off scot free.
Right.
Yeah, that's a problem. But
Yeah. No, you reminded me of the other trial, another jockey called Kieran Fallon, race fixing trial. So
race fixing.
basically, then he was accused, and these other jockeys were of like deliberately throw-in races. You know, so that there was like a betting syndicate putting money, on rival horses or whatever, and they were allegedly not trying enough and deliberately sort of losing races. You know.
How did they prove that?
Well, they all got acquitted in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of evidence, but they couldn't quite prove it.
Do you remember when the Brentford footballer, he's in Saudi Arabia getting like £1 million, like 2 million a month now.
Tony,
Ivan Tony, yeah. If with his case, if they were able to prove that he was doing things in the game, like maybe getting a yellow card,
yeah,
if they were able to prove that, would he have faced criminal charges?
yeah, because you don't remember it. Years ago, there was a Bruce Grobbelaar, Liverpool goalkeeper, and who was the other one? Hans Sagers, who used to play for Wimbledon. All these footballers went on trial. So it was in the 90s. For that match fixing, basically there was a syndicate I think it was in the Far East, who were allegedly paying them to, either, I think it was to throw matches or to let certain amount of goals in or something like that. And they all got acquitted as well, I think. So very difficult to prove.
Because I wonder now, with with most betting happening online now, I wonder if these gambling sites, I'm pretty sure they do. If I had because I do have a cousin who plays for Man City, but if he was to give me inside information and stuff like that, would they be able to link it through my ID being my surname, same surname as his?
A lot of these betting companies are really rich, and they probably have really good security and really good people who are tracking that sort of suspicious betting patterns, stuff like that.
That's what I think.
So yeah, I imagine be careful.
I don't have any plan to do it.
Imagine they're constantly wary of that, especially, say there's a suspicious result, like Man City lose 3-0 to Southampton or something. It's like, what the fuck? And then somebody's made a load of money off it, they will be a bit suspicious.
Yeah, any gambling trials you've been to?
Only that race fixing one, that one. That was quite an interesting case because there was the Kinahan cartel. The Christy Kinahan, the dad, he was kind of tendentiously, he was sort of involved on the fringe of it, because Kieran Fallon was Irish.
Were there any particularly gruesome trials you went to it's tough to watch stuff stuff.
Damn, his face changed, man.
Huh?
Like your facial expression says you've seen some disgusting stuff.
Yeah, well, I think probably a lot. But that come back to Fred West, Fred and Rose West. That was pretty horrible. You know, he was killing. He killed about 12 women and girls, and usually tortured them before killing them. And one of them was they found like skeletons and remains, and one of them, the woman had like a mask, tape around her head with just a little sort of breathing tube.
Oh God!
So dread to think what had she been through before she died. Pretty horrible, pretty grisly.
I think we'll end it on that note.
Yes, maybe edit that out.
Yeah. All right, Chris, Mr. Summers, thank you so much.
No worries, no
so
worries.
much.
Cheers.
Appreciate you.
Pleasure.
Be sure to, again, we're going to say one more time, check out his Substack. I'm going to link it in the description. Follow him on Twitter as well. Follow him on Twitter. He gives it up. He'll probably be covering a rapper that you know on Twitter. And yeah, cheers.
That's it.
There'll be plenty more this year.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Billions got a retrial.
Billions. He's actually sick.